Welcome to the debate. Look, I want you to imagine a heavyweight boxer, right? Days away from a career-defining championship bout.
Okay, I'm with you.
And to prepare, they step into the ring with, just a local sparring partner. And they get absolutely flattened in the first round.
Oh, wow, just completely humiliated.
Right. Completely humiliated. You would naturally assume the title fight is over before the opening bell even rings.
Yeah, you'd expect them to walk into the main event practically flinching.
Exactly. But then they step under the bright lights against the reigning champion, and they don't just survive. They actually dominate. It completely defies conventional logic.
It really does.
So today we're looking at Shrestha Shah and Andrew McGlashan's commentary on an event that, it mirrors that exact improbability. Bangladesh's historic first test victory over Australia in Darwin.
Right, and the commentary firmly establishes that winning a test match in Australia remains, it's one of the toughest assignments in the sport.
Without a doubt. But what elevates this from, just a great win to something truly legendary is that just days prior, in a warm-up game against a secondary team, the Cricket Australia 11, Bangladesh was bowled out for a mere 54 runs.
Yeah, 54 all out in a red ball match. I mean, it is genuinely difficult to overstate what a systemic failure that represents on a major tour.
It's a total disaster. So the central question we are exploring today is this: what was the primary driver of this turnaround? A turnaround so severe that Shah and McGlashan literally describe it as almost too improbable to be true.
Right.
My position is that this victory was, at its core, a psychological triumph. I mean, the physical skills of these international cricketers didn't magically transform over a weekend, right? So the decisive factor had to be conquering a deeply layered intimidation. The intimidation of Australia's formidable reputation, their lethal bowling attack, the notoriously alien conditions, and, crucially, the psychological trauma of that humiliating 54-run warm-up performance.
See, I come at it from a different way.
Okay, let's hear it.
While the mental resilience required to bounce back is, yes, staggering, I argue that this victory was fundamentally a tactical and executional triumph. Lack of intimidation is, at the end of the day, just a feeling.
A pretty important feeling.
Sure, but a feeling doesn't take 20 wickets. The actual result was secured through a proactive shift in gameplay. The commentators hit on something vital when they know Bangladesh didn't win by, and I quote, hanging on or waiting for Australia to implode.
Right. They specifically mention that.
Exactly. And that represents a tangible, aggressive shift in strategy away from home, proving they forced the win through active, mechanical execution rather than just, surviving with a positive mindset.
I hear you, but you cannot separate that mechanical execution from what happened just 72 hours earlier. Being bowled out for 54 isn't just a bad day at the office.
No, it's not.
It creates a psychological deficit that usually ruins a tour before it even begins. Going back to my boxer analogy for a second. When you are knocked out by the sparring partner, the trauma lives in the muscle memory.
Yeah, but
The anxiety causes you to freeze up. For a batting lineup to walk out just days later against the premier Australian attack, knowing a second-string team just dismantled them, the natural human instinct is absolute panic.
okay, but
They had to dismantle a four-pronged intimidation: the reputation, the attack, the conditions, and that warm-up disaster. The delta between getting bowled out for 54 and winning a test match against one of the most dominant home teams in history is entirely about mental fortitude.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that it's all about psychological paralysis.
Why not? The technique to hit a cover drive was always there. The psychological paralysis that caused the 54 all-out just had to be removed.
Let me tell you why. Because a score of 54 all out is a glaring indictment of your mechanics. It indicates severe tactical flaws in adapting to Australian conditions.
Or just severe anxiety.
No, think about it like tennis. If you spent your entire life playing on the slow, high-bouncing clay courts of the French Open, and suddenly you step onto the slick, skidding grass of Wimbledon, your fundamental footwork is wrong.
Sure, the surface changes things.
Exactly. It doesn't matter how brave you are, the physics of the surface will defeat you. The bounce in Darwin is vastly different from the low, slow bounce in Dhaka.
Obviously.
So if you were bowled out for 54, it means your batters are lunging forward, they're playing away from their bodies, and they are misjudging the pace.
Right, which happens when you're tense.
But the turnaround means that between the warm-up game and the test match, they actively analyzed those dismissals. They altered their weight transfer and executed those corrections against a much superior Australian attack. That requires elite real-time mechanical adjustment.
Okay, I see why you think that. But let me give you a different perspective.
Go ahead.
You are treating the mechanics of batting as if they exist in a vacuum, completely divorced from the nervous system.
I'm really not. I'm just focusing on the reality of the sport.
But why does an international batter suddenly play away from their body? Why is their weight transfer suddenly wrong when they've played professional cricket their whole lives?
Because the pitch is completely different.
No, it is because they are anxious. They are tentative. When you face an alien condition like the Darwin bounce, and you combine it with the aura of the Australian team, the baggy greens, it creates a massive cognitive load.
A cognitive load? Come on!
Yes, that cognitive load causes a microsecond of hesitation. Your feet don't move, you edge the ball to the slips. Yes, they had to adapt to the bounce, but the prerequisite for that mechanical adaptation is a clear mind.
I hear the cognitive load argument, and yes, anxiety tightens muscles. But you are totally ignoring the physics of a 145-kilometer-per-hour delivery rearing off a hard pitch.
I'm not ignoring it. I'm just saying you can't hit it if you're terrified.
But the ball doesn't care if your nervous system is clear. It cares about the angle of your bat. Let's look at the actual application of strategy on the field.
Okay.
The commentary gives us a very clear indicator of how this match was won. They refused to just hang on.
Which is a psychological choice.
Now, we need to unpack what a strategy of hanging on actually looks like mechanically in Australia. Historically, lesser-ranked subcontinental teams go down under and play a strategy of sheer attrition.
Right, they try to survive.
Exactly. They leave the ball outside off stump endlessly, they pack the slip cordon, they set deep defensive fields. They essentially play to not lose early, hoping the dominant team makes unforced errors.
Waiting for the implosion.
Right. It's a strategy of waiting for the opponent to get bored or tired. Bangladesh completely abandoned that passive strategy. They forced the issue. Whether that meant scoring at a higher run rate or taking the game directly to the bowlers, that is the mechanical reason they won the match.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it differently. You are describing hanging on as a deliberate tactical choice made in a vacuum.
It is a tactical choice.
I argue that hanging on is simply a behavioral symptom of intimidation. Think about the psychology of attrition. Why do teams set defensive fields and bat purely to survive?
Because they don't want to get bowled out for 54 again?
Because they fear the opponent. They look at the Australian lineup, they see the legendary baggy green caps, and they internally accept, we cannot go toe-to-toe with these guys.
So they play defensively?
Exactly. It is a subconscious retreat. You only wait for an opponent to implode when you are deeply intimidated by their capability. By choosing not to fear the attack, Bangladesh naturally stopped hanging on.
Okay, but
The psychological breakthrough, the refusal to be intimidated, is the root cause. The aggressive tactical shift you are highlighting, that's just the downstream effect of that newfound bravery.
See, treating tactics as merely a downstream effect totally minimizes the incredible difficulty of executing an attacking game plan.
I'm not saying it's easy.
But it's one thing to sit in the dressing room and say, we aren't going to be intimidated today, we are going to take the game to them.
Sure.
It is an entirely different universe to walk out to the middle and actually cut a fast bowler over point for a boundary. The execution is everything.
But if you don't have the belief, you don't even attempt the shot.
And if you decide to be aggressive and you don't have the mechanical discipline to back it up, you don't get a historic test victory. You get bowled out for 150 instead of 54.
Fair point, but
Let's talk about the bowlers for a second. Bowling a maiden over in Australia isn't just a statistical win, it's a physical assertion of dominance.
it's massive pressure.
Right. It requires hitting the exact same patch of the pitch 6 times in a row to silence the crowd and shift the pressure back onto the home team. The fact that they successfully refused to hang on means they out-executed Australia.
They did.
They put the ball in the right areas, they built partnerships. None of that is guaranteed just because you feel brave.
I'm not entirely convinced by that line of reasoning, honestly, because it ignores the historical context Shah and McGlashan provide.
How so?
They specifically dedicate this victory to those who have followed Bangladesh through all the false dawns, frustrating collapses, and missed opportunities away from home.
Yes, a very poignant part of the commentary.
We have to look at what a frustrating collapse actually is in the sport of cricket. Historically, when a developing team tours away from home, they often find themselves in positions of strength, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
They'll be 200 for 2, looking entirely comfortable, executing perfectly. And then one wicket falls.
And the wheels come off.
Exactly. Suddenly, the pressure of playing away from home mounts. The realization that they might actually win against the giant creates panic. The fear of winning sets in.
I mean, momentum shifts happen.
But it's more than momentum. One wicket brings 2, 2 brings 3, and a frustrating collapse ensues. That is a well-documented psychological phenomenon across all sports.
Sure, choking is a thing.
The pressure cooker gets to them. Breaking that specific cycle of collapsing in Darwin was a conquering of historical mental demons, not just a sudden upgrade in their cover drives.
I agree that the history of false dawns is vital context. But let's look at the other phrase Suresh and Andrew use, missed opportunities.
Okay.
What is a missed opportunity away from home? A missed opportunity is a dropped catch in the slips when the Australian captain is on 15.
Which hurts. Yes.
A missed opportunity is a bowler delivering a wide half volley on a crucial third down play, allowing the pressure to release. A missed opportunity is a batter playing an expansive, reckless drive right before the lunch break.
Yes, mistakes happen.
But these are not just mystical mental demons floating around the stadium. These are strict, measurable failures of execution at critical moments.
Right, but why do they fail then?
Darwin is a watershed moment because, for the first time, when those critical junctures arrived, they actually executed. They didn't drop the catch, they didn't bowl the loose delivery, they maintained their tactical discipline when it mattered most.
Wait, but let's pause right there. Why do those missed opportunities happen in those specific high-leverage moments?
Because the margins for error are tiny against Australia.
No, it goes back exactly to the cognitive load we were discussing earlier. When a team that historically struggles finds themselves ahead of a powerhouse like Australia, the adrenaline spikes and fine motor skills degrade.
You're saying they literally lose their physical coordination?
Yes, the bowler bowls that wide half volley because their arm gets stiff due to the anxiety of the moment. The slip fielder drops the catch because they are thinking about the historical weight of the potential victory rather than just watching the red ball into their hands.
That's assuming a lot about what's in a player's head.
But it's human nature. This is why overcoming the trauma of the 54 all-out is the linchpin of the whole match. By systematically dismantling their own intimidation before the test began, they removed that cognitive load. They allowed themselves to stay in the present moment. That's why this win feels particularly special to the commentators. It's not just that they batted or bowled with better discipline, it's that they exercised a psychological ghost that has haunted the team for decades.
That is a very compelling narrative, I'll give you that. But I think we risk romanticizing the victory at the expense of acknowledging the sheer professional competence it took to achieve it.
I don't think it's romanticizing to say mindset matters.
You are suggesting that their previous failures were just a lack of psychological framing, and this win was some sudden mental awakening. I argue that international cricket is a ruthless meritocracy of skill.
Of course it's about skill, but
Australia does not lose test matches at home simply because the opposition feels brave or manages their cognitive load well. They lose when the opposition outthinks them and outplays them.
right, by not hanging on.
Exactly. Refusing to wait for an implosion means Bangladesh forced the issue. They identified weaknesses in the Australian setup, maybe targeting a specific bowler's second spell or exploiting a specific area of the pitch, and they ruthlessly executed that plan over 5 days.
5 long days.
Right. That level of sustained strategic brilliance is the true hallmark of this victory.
I hear you, but we keep coming back to the sheer proximity of these two events.
The warm-up game.
Yes. From 54 all-out against the CAXI to a test victory over Australia in the space of a few days. The timeline is the lens through which we have to view this entire match.
It's a tight turnaround.
You cannot completely overhaul a team's tactical playbook or deeply ingrained mechanical flaws in 72 hours. You can't rewire a tennis player from clay to grass in 3 days, to use your own analogy.
Well, elite athletes adapt faster than you think.
What you can do in 72 hours is have a brutally honest team meeting, look each other in the eye, and collectively decide that the intimidation stops today.
A locker room reset.
Exactly. You can reset the psychological baseline. The mechanics were clearly there. They're international cricketers.
Yes, they are.
The tactical knowledge was there, but the catalyst that turned a 54-run disaster into a historic triumph was the absolute refusal to be intimidated by the baggy green, the pitch, or their own recent failure.
Let me push back on that timeline argument, though.
Okay.
I think we have to acknowledge that confidence and execution form a feedback loop. And action precedes belief.
How so?
You say the mental reset in the locker room allowed the tactics to flourish. I would counter that stepping onto the pitch on day one and successfully executing an aggressive game plan is what actually banished the intimidation.
Oh, interesting.
You don't just decide to not be intimidated. You hit a boundary early in your innings. You bowl a maiden over that beats the outside edge, and then you feel brave.
So the success breeds the confidence.
Exactly. They prove to themselves they belong by executing their skills at an elite level, refusing to hang on, and taking the fight directly to Australia. The mechanics unlock the mindset, not the other way around.
It is a fascinating tension. And as we wrap up our deep dive today, I think it's pretty clear why this match will resonate for generations.
Oh, absolutely.
To summarize my position, I maintain that the sheer oppressive weight of being bowled out for 54 in a warm-up, combined with the historical aura of touring Australia, creates an almost insurmountable mental hurdle.
It's a huge hurdle.
Right. The fact that Bangladesh completely neutralized that 4-layered intimidation, reputation, attack conditions, and recent trauma is what allowed their natural talent to shine. It is what makes this a legendary, psychologically triumphant win.
And I maintain that while the psychological recovery is a great story, the history books are written by those who execute.
Fair enough?
By refusing to play the traditional passive cricket of lesser-ranked touring teams and actively taking the game to Australia, rather than waiting for an unforced implosion, Bangladesh proved this was a victory of tactical aggression and supreme mechanical execution.
But I think where we completely converge is on the gravity of the achievement itself.
100%.
To go from the absolute nadir of a 54 all-out warm-up to a test win against Australia away from home, I mean, it is an astonishing feat.
Absolutely. It is one of the great turnarounds in modern sports history. Regardless of whether you view it through the lens of psychology or execution, the sheer improbability of it is what makes Surest and Andrew's commentaries so compelling.
Darwin will indeed forever have its place in Bangladesh cricket folklore. It leaves us with a lingering question about human performance.
It really does.
When faced with catastrophic failure, what does it truly take to bounce back? Is it a quiet revolution of the mind, a refusal to be intimidated by the ghosts of the past?
Or is it a ruthless dedication to the mechanics of the craft, forcing the opponent to yield through sheer execution?
We invite you to look deeper into the historical record and decide for yourself whether it was the conquering of the mind or the mastery of the bat that truly rewrote history in Darwin. Thank you for joining us on The Debate.